Yo, what is up guys? Red Stagg here. In today's video, we're going to go through a comprehensive guide to mapping in Project Diablo 2. That's going to include what maps are, what the different tiers offer, map rarity, looking at map modifications and corruptions, what you're looking for in a map, what you don't really want to see in a map, why and when you should be mapping in your Project Diablo 2 experience, and then finalize touching on some of the strongest builds and my personal recommendation for making a mapping character. So stay tuned for that. Without further need for an introduction, we've got a lot to get through, so let's get into it. Your Project Diablo 2 Comprehensive Mapping Guide. So to get us all onto the same level, let me briefly describe to you what maps are. Now, maps are droppable items from any monster in Hell, and they can be normal, magic, or rare, that when right-clicked in Hell Act 5, open up a portal to a realm that have monsters that are more difficult and higher level than every other place in Diablo 2. Now, there's two prerequisites to opening a map. One is you have to be level 75, and the second is that you have to have completed the Baal quest in Hell mode. So maps come in 3 different tiers representing 3 different areas, including item levels and monster levels, and spawn different monsters and different map bosses. The tier 1 map is called Runes of Vizhun map. This area resembles Kurast area in Act 3, sort of lower Kurast, upper Kurast area, and drops item level 87 from the normal monsters. The map boss for this map looks a bit like Radamint. He has a lot of HP, casts various shouts to buffer the minions, and also shoots multiple projectiles. Obviously the shouts make the minions harder to kill, which means sometimes focusing just the boss is the better option. We also have tier 2 maps. This is called a Phlegathon map. This map sort of resembles the area like the River of Flame towards the Chaos Sanctuary when you encounter the map boss. This drops item level 88, so one item level above tier 1 maps. And the map boss looks a bit like a Pit Lord. He has a constant Armageddon similar to the Druid spell falling around him, which deal a lot of damage even at maximum fire res. So you need to be careful of this, and you need to have your rejuve pots to avoid dying. And finally, you have tier 3 maps, also known as River of Blood maps. This map sort of resembles Travinsel to Mephisto area and has an item level of 89, the highest of all 3 maps. Now, interestingly, this map has 2 map bosses. We have one that looks a bit like Griswold and has some blood golems by his side. He's fairly easy to take down. And the other one looks like Lister the Tormentor or Minions of Destruction. This boss has a Nova similar to Baal that deals a lot of damage. So again, with the tier 3 maps, you need to be maxing res, you need to have your rejuve pots if you'd want to avoid dying. Typically, as per map boss and also item level indicates, tier 1 maps are easier to clear and tier 3 maps are the hardest to clear. This of course means that you have potentially more rewards in tier 3 maps reflected in the item area. And this is actually also build dependent, depending on what immunities you struggle with, if any, and what character you are running. As mentioned before, maps come in 3 different forms, that be white, magic, or rare. Hey senpai, how about a unique map for season 2? White maps are maps with no modifications to the monsters or the area or anything, and is similar to simply running around and killing monsters in Hell, although slightly more difficult. Magic maps are maps that are imbued with magical properties that may influence the monsters in a negative way for us. For example, increasing their damage, increasing their HP, reducing their curse duration, but usually comes with the trade-off of a benefit to the area, such as increased magic find, gold find, experience, or monster density. Now remember here, the higher the monster density, the more kills per hour, let's say, which means more drops in theory. So that's important. Next we have rare maps. Now these are yellow maps, typically with a vast array of monster modifications. So you could see maps with multiple modifications to the monster, like increased health, increased resistances. You can see decreased player resistances, decreased player speed. And of course, with all of these modifications comes the reward, which is usually higher magic and gold find, higher density, and higher experience compared to the other maps. So why would anyone keep white or blue maps if clearly yellow maps are better? The answer, my friends, is Anya. Anya offers new and very expensive consumables. These consumables allow you to upgrade white maps to rare, upgrade blue maps to rare maps, reroll rare maps, and always able to revert a map back to its white status. Now, this can be done an unlimited amount of times, providing you can afford it. This is where things like Geeds and the Edge Runeword Bow are super helpful for reducing the costs. But in theory, means that you can reroll your maps to your desired mods an unlimited amount of times. Pretty neat, right? We've spoken a lot about modifications to maps and rerolling for desirable modifications, but we haven't actually talked about what desirable modifications are. Honestly, it depends on what your goal is. If you want to magic find and find high runes, you want high magic find and high density. If you want to increase your experience gained and push for level 99, you want experience and density. And simply, if you want to farm map bosses for pure demonic essences, then white maps are really your go-to for speed. I personally consider 150 plus magic find and density to be a good map, and is something that I reroll for finding items. And this will vary depending on your own personal preferences. There are also less desirable modifications, and these are mods that are rolled onto a map that really can make your life a bit more difficult and slow you down in the mapping process. Some of these undesirable mods include increased monster HP, decreased player stats such as decrease in player movement or attack or faster cast rate. And additionally, there's maybe some monsters that roll into a map that don't suit you. Some of the monsters that can be rolled into a map, for example, are ghosts. These are difficult for people who deal physical damage and don't have a way of breaking their immunity. Vampire lords with life-stealing attacks and lots of fire damage. Succubus witches, which is one I hate the most, with their homing missiles, running away from you, kiting you. And undead walkers or reviving undeads. Now, they have an attack that can stun you and deal a lot of damage. If you, for example, teleport or run too nearby them, you're going to get hit multiple times and more likely to die. And remember, they revive, so slaying monsters rest in peace is your friend. Additional modifications which are super nice to get on your map are, for example, area level modifications. Now, this will increase the base area level for all monsters in here, which increase your chance of getting the super rare high level treasure class items from normal monsters. So this is something that's really good, especially when you go into a tier 3 map. If it has area level, then all the monsters there will be level 90 and potentially can drop anything in the game. Additionally, you can also corrupt maps. Now, corrupted maps have 3 possible outcomes. This is monsters having mods, players having positive or negative mods, or huge changes to the area such as massive magic and gold find, massive density. If you hit magic find and or density, you're in for a good mapping experience there. And also, don't forget, if you don't like the map, you can always speak to Anya and reroll it. There's no point in running a super difficult map with no real reward. So if it's not already clear, let me briefly touch on why you should be including maps into your Project Diablo 2 experience. I mean, for starters, it's something different from the endless battle runs and pit runs and ancient tunnel runs and whatever else you might be doing, so it's nice to have a bit of change. However, beyond that, you get lots of cool potential modifications like increased magic find without needing to stack on your gear. Higher monster density means more monsters are killed in a shorter time, and higher experience than anywhere else in Diablo 2 to push to that 99. At very least, maps offer some endgame content where you can really try and push your builds. There is nowhere else in Diablo 2 that is as difficult to clear as maps, so this is a real good showcase for the strength of your character. And of course, as a little bonus, the pure demonic essence that can drop from map bosses. This is a required and tradable valuable item that is used for creating the Diablo clone in the Diablo clone fight. Let's leave that for another video. I know, maps sound pretty great, right? Well, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Depending on your goal for maps, they may not be your best option. For example, if your kill speed is really slow, you keep dying trying to clear them, or the immunities of some monsters are too difficult for you to deal with, you're perhaps better sticking to more traditional methods of farming and gaining experience. So, when exactly should I start doing maps? Honestly, whenever you want. I'm not here to tell you you need X amount of damage and X amount of magic find before you can start running maps. However, what I would recommend if it's really your first map is open a white map first before trying to do a rare one, seeing how you get on, see how you get on with the immunities that are there, and if you manage this okay, then progress on to rare ones. But honestly, if you just want a break from your traditional farming and EXP routes, then whatever, do them, give them a shot, see how it goes. So, what build should I use to map? Well, this question's a bit complicated because there's nothing that you should use to map. Most builds and most characters can manage some form of map with reasonable gear. However, if you really want to build a mapper, some of the best mappers that come to my mind are Amazons, such as Boazons, really high level gear, and Oradins with Paladins. They have extremely fast clearing speeds. And sorry to any of you that I missed out. I'm sure you're fast too. But for those of you that have more budget gear, you can definitely do it with Summoner, Necro, or Druid. But honestly, what I would recommend for you building a mapper is pick a class you enjoy. You're going to have a far better time, a far better Project Diablo 2 experience and process of running maps if you're enjoying the character you're playing. You know, no point in spending lots of time and effort to create a character that when you start mapping, you're like, you know what, this is kind of boring. Why have I just wasted all my time? If you're not going to have fun in the end, don't pick the character. Okay, I admit that was a bit of a ramble, but I'm serious. Any character can map once you get enough gear. Pick your favorite and have fun with it. So, that concludes our video today. I hope with this guide on mapping you feel more confident to start mapping and adding it to your Project Diablo 2 experience. If you like this content and you want to see more, please hit the like and subscribe button. I'm a huge fan of the PD2 community so far, and with your help we can make it bigger, better, and more informative. Until next time, happy mapping, Red Stagg out, GG.